What's up? What's up, everybody? Sports Card Strategy Show. Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com. Kendall McKee with Wild Cards Box Breaks. JustBaseball.com. And a bunch of other stuff that he does in the sports card investing world. We are brought to you today by Sports Card Investors MarketMoversApp.com. We want you to go to MarketMoversApp.com and we want you to use the promo code NOOffSeason, all lowercase, and you're either going to save 20% or you're going to get like a free 14-day trial. I'm not sure what they're doing anymore, but either way, you can get that great product, Market Movers app, by going to MarketMoversApp.com. Use the promo code NOOffSeason, all lowercase, and we would appreciate it if you do that. Everybody and Kendall, this is my favorite time of the week. Get to talk sports cards for as long as Kendall and I can go without having to go to the bathroom. So last time it was a couple hours.
You didn't wear your diaper today?
Well, I peed beforehand, so I should be good for at least 30 minutes. We'll see.
How are you, man?
Good, man. How about you? We were just talking. I have no more penis horse in the background. I'm in a new background. So those of you listening on Apple or Spotify, you could check out YouTube if you want to see the new amazing background of my room, which is my wife's shoes and the top of our closet and a random light in the back. And Kendall is rocking what he tells me is his normal facial hair, but he looks very different to me.
Yeah.
Looking good, my man. Looking good with the facial hair.
Thank you. I thought I'd trim it up. You know, I keep seeing these graphics you're putting out and I'm like, man, I look homeless on all these things. I got to trim it up. Paul's putting my face all over LinkedIn, bro. Like just everywhere. But,
my wife, Kate, was like, she's very good at a lot of different things. She's very creative. She has a good eye for good design. And she told me, she's like, you need to have each of your co-hosts like smile into the camera, and so they can get a good picture of them, because my pictures are pretty bad. The screenshots I take of us are pretty bad. So I'll try to do a better job. But dude, so tell me what is on your mind right now with sports card investing. I want to know what's on your mind. I'm going to tell you what I've got on my mind. Then we'll go through our purchases and sales. And then let's get into, we're going to do some MLS for Dummies today. And we teased that a couple weeks ago. So we're going to do that as we get into more soccer on the show. And then we are going to talk about baseball, because baseball 2022 is here. Opening day is about less than a month away from by the time this episode airs. So we are excited. And I want to talk to Kendall about really getting into the nitty gritty of like who the best people are to buy right now and who the best people are to maybe list for sale. So pick his brain on some sleepers, who's going to play well this year, both prospects and major leaguers, and see if we can identify some good plays there. So, all right, that's the show rundown. Kendall, what's on your mind right now in the sports card investing world? Anything you want to hit us with as we get going?
I've had a great week. Like my last 7 days have been really fun. I had a long weekend this weekend. So I got to do a lot of card stuff actually this weekend. Do you know Jimmy from Jimmy's Roadshow? Have you heard of him?
He's Kentucky, right? Is he Kentucky basketball cards or is...
Yeah. So in the hobby, he's kind of a big deal, but I didn't know that, and he lives down the street from me. So
no way.
So I went to Jimmy's this weekend, and I was just chatting with him, and he was talking to me. He's like, "Aren't you doing that podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah, we're doing one for Just Baseball." And he goes, "Isn't there another one you're doing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I work with Paul Hickey, and we do a podcast every couple of weeks, and then we split it up into like 9 different videos." He was like, "I was wondering how you guys did that. It was crazy." So anyway, he's like, "Man, we gotta work together a little bit." So I was like, maybe we got some more potential sponsors there in the future.
Let's get Jimmy involved. He seems like I have heard nothing but good things about him. Jimmy,
Yeah.
if you're listening, email me at paul@nooffseason.com and let's hook up, man. Kendall knows that I'm in Tennessee in the summer, so I won't be too far away from both of you guys, and we should definitely hook up. That'd be great. So that's cool, man. Thanks for sharing that.
No doubt. But I also had a great weekend of watching basketball. Man, the March Madness, it just doesn't literally get any better than that. And then to top that off, like little cream on top, is FC Cincinnati has had 2 wins in a row, Paul. We are not the worst team in the MLS this year. It's great. So obviously on our MLS for Dummies, you are going to hear a lot about my passion for the MLS and season ticket holder for the MLS. I'm actually big on the league, and I don't think I have blinders on. Let's just put it that way. Like, I think I'm looking at it from a pretty formative point of view. I really do think this league is up and coming. I think it has been for a while, but I think in the next 5-10 years, this league is going to be very much different than it is right now in a very good way. I think you're just seeing more and more time and money and resources and good people coming into the league. And yeah, so I'm excited to talk about it today. I think Topps 21 the Topps Chrome 21 is a good product. So let's get into it.
Yeah, that sounds great, man. Awesome. Well, yeah, I want to talk about all that stuff, and just real quick, what's on my mind too is not to sidetrack us, but
no, I didn't mean to say let's get into it right now. I'm just saying I'm excited to get there, you know.
Yeah, I hear you. So I don't know, but I say that because I have a feeling that what I'm about to say is going to sidetrack us, which is totally fine. Totally
Fantastic.
fine if it does. So let's get sidetracked. Well, a couple different things. First, I'll comment on the March Madness. I did have a good weekend watching it with my son. My Michigan State Spartans got past Davidson, and then unfortunately they lost to Duke.
What a game, though!
Kind of handed that game away. Yeah, great game. It was great to be up 5 with like 3 minutes left, and I mean, I found myself on PaniniAmerica.net looking at the instant autographs because there's a Paolo Banchero autograph.
Isn't he a beast?
For like out of 99 for like $199, and I was just like, no, you should learn your lesson. Like, just wait until he's in an NBA jersey. Wait until he's in an NBA jersey, because for $199, even though it's limited to, it's numbered out of 99 and it's a Duke, Paolo Banchero, he's in a Duke uniform. It's a good looking card. It's not going to be the same. I'd rather take that $199 and put it towards a Paolo Banchero autograph once he's a rookie in the NBA. So that won't be, we don't have to wait too long for that. So I did not buy it. I'm proud of myself. I'm learning.
I think he's going to be something really special, though. I mean, like I also don't think, I mean, if you've spent time watching him, you've probably realized this, but like, he is so much bigger than he plays. Like, when you look at, like, when you're just like watching ESPN or whatever, and you're not actually watching the game, if you just see pictures of him, you're like, yeah, that guy's probably like 6'5", 6'6". No, this dude is thick. I mean, he's moving like a guard. Like, I mean, he has that same body style of like a LeBron or a Zion, but you don't really realize how big he is until he's like towards the last 2 minutes of the game, he got the ball on the left side of the arc, and he just rocked it, and he Euro stepped, and a Michigan State defender was just like falling off of him. Like, it was just like boom, boom, and he just up for 2. And everybody was like, was that a foul? Was that not? Like, I don't know. That dude was just so big. Like, that dude was a Mack truck coming down the lane, Like, I was very impressed. I have been all season, but I don't think Duke's a title-winning team. But I do think that he's going to be a very good NBA player.
I agree. Whoever he goes to is going to get a heck of a player. This is the first time I've watched him play, but yeah, he looked – in the game against Michigan State, he looked like a bigger but quicker Luka. Like, he's got like moves like Luka, and
Yeah.
he can penetrate, draw defenders, find the open man, or he can shoot the three like silky smooth. He's got
Yeah,
the
decent
confidence. Like he
shooter
just
too.
looked,
Yeah.
yeah, and he looks quick for 6'10", and yeah, he's big, so he's gonna be a beast for sure. So I almost pulled trigger. I was like, you know what, flippable window. This could go up. This could go up between now and the NBA draft, but it just it didn't feel right. It's not my it would be going against everything I preach
No, I think
to
you made
buy
the right
that
decision
Duke
there.
card. Yeah, there's just a bunch of different ways I could spend that $199 in a better way. And so, speaking of that, I'll segue into my next thing on my mind, which is F1. Kendall, are you into F1 at all?
Man, I literally at Jimmy's shop on Saturday, he had a hobby box of Formula One and Topps Chrome, and I was sitting there and I was like, Jimmy, I see this, and anytime I see anybody open it, just straight bangers are coming out of it. Just like people just getting super wealthy off of cards. And so I'm like, I want to get into it, but I don't have any knowledge of racing at all. Like the most knowledge I have on racing is NASCAR, and I don't think there even is NASCAR cards, and so I'm just like, I'm completely lost. I know that there's like one guy that is like the chase card that he drives the Mercedes Benz, I think. I'm so lost. Yeah. So yes. Yeah. Go ahead and school me on F1.
Let me just make a few points, because literally like 3 weeks ago, I was exactly where you are with it. Where it's hard to learn a new sport. Like we're gonna attempt it in a minute with MLS. Like MLS it's not a new sport, but it's gonna be a new league to learn about for a lot of us. Yeah, and it's hard to learn that. But the thing I like about F1 is there's 10 teams. Each team has 2 drivers, so there's only 20 drivers.
Okay.
And it's the same 20 drivers. I mean, unless somebody gets sick or something weird happens with a car, which does happen from time to time, of course. But for the most part, you've got the same 20 drivers for the entire season. And you're mentioning Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton's he's basically the GOAT of the sport. But then there's also Max Verstappen, and I've learned about a couple other guys that are gonna start to. So I put Lewis Hamilton on the Sports Card Investment Report a couple weeks ago.
That.
So go to nooffseason.com, everybody. Check out the Sports Card Investment Report. I put a lot of time and effort into that. It's getting better and better. You can get the top 25 for free. You can get my shallow analysis on each of the top 25 for free, but then you can upgrade for a little bit of money every month. You can get far deeper analysis, and you can get the top 100. And
I love how you put it on the front page too, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, that was you're a user experience guy. You've got the technical background. So I made a decision to upgrade the user experience rather than having to have somebody click into the main part of the site. I just said, you know what, I'm gonna feed that grid right on the homepage, and hopefully that'll help. And we've had more and more people subscribing every week, slowly but surely. So
heck yeah,
I'd really appreciate it if people check it out. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the price point. But I mean, for the most part, I think you get a good value, and so would love for everybody to go to nooffseason.com. You'll see it right away. But I'm about to, and Kendall and I have been alternating weeks with Kendall as the co-host, and then we've had Greg Longto from Canada, and he's big into F1 and soccer and a little bit of basketball. And so Greg and I have been talking a little bit of F1 on some of the shows, and he's lobbying me to get some more drivers in the top 100, and I'm finally going to do it. By the time this show airs, there will be probably at least 3 more drivers in my top 100, and you're gonna have to go check it out to see who is in the top 100. There's probably going to be at least 1, maybe 2 more in the top 25, just because it's actually very easy to follow as a sport. I've only watched a couple episodes of Drive to Survive on Netflix.
I was just about to
tune
start
into the race. Yeah. It's a little bit hard to watch unless you're like if you're doing something else. It's hard to watch because you've got the like it's just this constant like. So I can't like multitask with it on because I'm always like, oh, like it scares the crap out of me. But like if I'm wanting to just not do anything else and just lock into a show, it's great. And I did actually just follow the race, the Bahrain opening week race this past weekend, and it's just simple. I mean, it's simple to follow. Like it's not like you don't even really have to watch the race. So I kind of like it from a sports card investing standpoint because you can, the way that Topps did the Topps Chrome release 2020, which has obviously been massive. They've got the RC logos on for a couple of guys, Lando Norris and George Russell. You've got George Russell is now Lewis Hamilton's teammate for Mercedes.
Okay.
So there's like player movement. So like you can, I would say it's simpler to follow. It's simpler to get into if you don't know anything else because it's basically like you're limited to the amount of news that can happen. You're limited to the amount of teams. There's no like deep benches. Like it's very straightforward. It's like I said, 20 total drivers. And then if you research a checklist on Cardboard Connection, which is like where we all go to research checklists basically, it's easy to follow the checklist. You know what I mean? But they do a nice job. And then the 2021 release just came out. So now I'm finding that, and I'll leave F1 on this note, and you could tell me what you think. So you probably like a lot of people out there probably don't know this, especially if you don't know anything about F1, but there's actually F2 and F3. So that's kind of like F2 is like AAA, and then F3 is like your high A, low A, or double A or whatever. And so what's cool about that is for the Topps Chrome 2020 release and for the Topps 2021 and Topps Chrome 2021 releases for F1, they've each included F2 drivers. So if you do a little bit of research around who the top F2 drivers are, and maybe like even better yet, like who won F3 and then moved up to F2 and maybe is in the checklist.
So is there a promotion and relegation?
Yes, but it's not like soccer. It's just more like free agency. It's more like open free agency. Each driver signs a contract, and when your contract is up, you can move on to another team. So there's driver movement, player movement, and then the owners of the, you know, each team has like a manager, a staff of like different mechanics and different people that do pit crew stuff. Because I'm an F1 beginner. So for those of you that are F1 enthusiasts, you can drop a comment below and kind of correct me. But I think that so the owner and the manager can kind of work out who their drivers are. If the team wants to change drivers, they can figure that out. So they can move F2 drivers up to F1, and there's a guy who's going to be making his appearance in the top 100, and his name is Oscar Piastri, and he's a current I think you'll like this, Kendall. He's a current F2 driver. He won F3 last year, and he's in the Topps Chrome and regular Topps 2021 checklist for F1 cards. And so he's got the Future Stars designation. There's no RC on it because he's not an F1 driver yet. But all of these cards, dude, they're all like rising constantly. It's like that's the scary part is how expensive these cards are. And that's why I haven't put them in a top 100 yet, is because they're so expensive. But like this guy, Oscar Piastri, who's 20, he's from Australia. Like if I told you that I'm debating bidding like $750 on a out of 50 chrome gold refractor auto for this like basically no name guy, but could be the next like big F1 guy. Like, I don't know. Would that surprise you? Like, am I crazy for that? This is what I spent like all day yesterday, pretty much up until the Michigan State game, thinking about like, do I get into F1 card? Like, do I buy F1 cards? And if so, like, how do I do it? Because they're so expensive. Do I put the money down on these expensive cards, or do I try to go with like who the next guy could be. And even if I try to go with who the next guy could be, to get his banger card, like you still got to shell out a bunch of money. So F1's crazy right now, and I'm but I'm starting to follow it big time because I think it's going to be a big part of the hobby. If it isn't already, it's going to continue to be huge. So
yeah, I'm looking at a Oscar Piastri card out of 25, and it's buy it now at $1,000. That's awesome.
Crazy,
like,
man.
I mean,
it's crazy.
I might just go and buy some wax and just start ripping, because like I like, so anyway, what I was talking with Jimmy about at the shop was I was like, I think I'm going to buy some of this wax and just hold it for a while because F1 is taking off and I don't really know enough to to rip and realize what I have in my hands, so if nothing else,
yeah,
I have some of that wax, and then if I do down the road, get further into this, because it's funny that you wanted to bring this up. I just put it on my Netflix, like next to watch list or whatever. And like, I'm about to dive into that, knowing that this is another avenue that I could potentially be making flips on. And because I'm going to probably spend more time researching it than most other people. That's typically how me and you guys like us end up making good plays, is you're listening to a podcast about sports cards for 2 hours while you swim, like that one guy who
yeah, I know, I love it. I was like, first of all, I was like, swim? What kind of headphones do you have?
First off, I was like, who swims for 2 hours? Like, good grief, bro. But
good for you, man. Good for you.
Yeah, I'm proud of him, maybe we should buy sports cards of that guy, number one swimmer. But
number one swimming multitasker.
But I was also blown away that somebody would want to listen to me for 2 hours. That's pretty cool. But anyway, yeah. So I wanted to make like a larger play on having some of this wax, just potentially because if I am going to get into it, I want to be able to have some invested interest there. But also, if I do get into it and realize, hey, there is sports that I've gotten into and realized, hey, I'm not really interested in this product. And it's like, I'm going to have to keep up with this way more than I need to. So I'm just going to not invest here. So like, I have done some of that in the past, but I think with what you're saying about 20 drivers, there is an F2, F3, there is some sort of minor league play here. I think this is something that I'm going to take a look at over the next 2 weeks, and hopefully I have a lot more to say about it in our next episode.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is going to be really good content for everybody to follow too, because I think this is for people like you and to a lesser extent me, who like know what we're doing, or have established like at least enough knowledge to be confident enough to be lending advice to people about sports card investing. Going into a new, and we're about to do it with MLS, like going into a new part of the market, puts us all in a level playing field, which then is fun, and then then the content is like, well, here's what I'm learning. Like, I don't know this, I just learned that. Like, so like, and I think we'll segue into see if we have any pickups that we can talk to before we get into MLS for dummies. But like, I'll talk about a mistake that I made yesterday. Like I was just trying to dip my foot into this F1 investing waters. And I didn't know that Topps actually had like a regular Topps paper release for F1 in 2021 and a chrome release. So as I was bidding on Oscar Piastri cards, I realized that there was like an aqua numbered out of 399, and I put like way too high of an offer on it, thinking that it was part of the Topps chrome, and it was actually part of Topps. So product. I didn't spend that much money yesterday. And I think I'll end up being okay, but I ended up basically like, I bought like 2 Topps paper Oscar Piastri cards thinking I was getting a really good deal on chrome. And then I realized like, oh, this is paper, not chrome. Hopefully it'll work in the long run. But for now, everybody getting into F1, make sure you're buying from the right set or buying the right hobby box. And you're it just goes to show you're never really going to get a deal. You're always going to pay market prices or over market prices, especially with F1 right now. So those are my pickups. It's short. I bought 2 Oscar Piastri cards. one was $50 and the other was $9. It was one was a aqua numbered to $199,
you
which
have
I
your
don't think,
screen shared.
think that. Yeah, I'm fine with that actually. So,
Okay, I just wanted
and
to
then
make
the
sure.
Oscar Piastri Future Stars checkered parallel. So there's a checkered, and the cards are different in the Topps Chrome release. So you wouldn't get like an aqua, you wouldn't get like a checkered thing. Basically, in the Chrome release, you're gonna get the refractor, the numbered colored refractors. Very few autos, like very few autos. So my whole like buy the rookie auto thing is like just not realistic. They're just so expensive because there's so few of them in F1.
Yeah.
But those were my purchases. Oh, and then my other purchase was I did buy a hobby. Well, it's not technically a hobby box. It's a box of Bowman 2022 Baseball First Edition.
Nice.
Directly from Topps for $399.99. So I'll let you tell me what I did wrong there, and also tell me why I still might be okay, because you know a lot more about what's potentially in that box than I do.
So this is kind of the it's Topps little play to make just a little margin more on their Bowman product, and it works. Here's why: because people are so pumped about getting these first players, and I think the people that are buying this Bowman First product, or the Bowman, what's it called? Just so I can get the language right.
First edition.
Yeah, the first edition Bowman. The people that are buying that, I would assume that they're all investors, because what they're wanting to do is they're wanting to get the first Jack Leiter or the first what's that dude that's on the Marlins? They're wanting to get the first ones of these products, the first Bowman First, the first Bowman colored maybe on eBay, and so that they can kind of be the guy who's leading the market in that area. So what they're doing here is they're making a distinction by having, mostly these are paper products. So what we've talked about just recently by you saying that you bought an Aqua F1, these are, for the most part, you're not going to find a lot of chromes in here. This is the first paper product. You're going to have value here though, which is a fun play. For instance, when this first launched, I've told you before, but I am huge on Jordan Lawler. So the shortstop that got drafted last year in Arizona, I'm huge on him. And I knew that I was going to be huge on him. And so I knew that I was going to have to big in draft 2021, because I knew that I wanted to get a Jordan Lawler card, whether that's a first or a chrome first or an auto first. I just wanted some Jordan Lawler because he was one of my favorite prospects coming out of high school in Texas, and I knew his cards were going to be in that draft 21. And I knew that I wasn't going to want to pay the price for buying a single on eBay. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just try to get in some Jordan Lawler or Arizona breaks in that early. But what I was able to do was I was able to buy a Jordan Lawler first paper first edition before the 22 came out. But I did have to pay like $30 for it. And now I'm like, okay, like if you look at it that way, this is a paper first product that most of the time is going for $2, $3, $4. I think Torkelson's is like maybe $20, his paper first. But that first edition little circle logo on it, especially right before the new release comes out, so you have like a month window that you can rip and flip. That's how I'm saying it. If you're a rip and flipper, then rip this and flip this. Yes, that's the card that I bought. And so that little first edition logo, it's the first edition blue logo in the bottom left. It's always in the same spot. Well, it could be on the bottom right, depending on the card's little disposition. But it's not the first Bowman logo that's in the top right or the top left. It's always right above the name, or it's always on the bottom part of the card. That's where you're going to find that first edition. And typically that means that is kind of like the most first edition cards that are coming on the market. it's typically more expensive. It's typically all paper, and it's typically there's not a lot of autographs for what I know in it, because Bowman doesn't like to put in their most valuable cards in this set alone, because typically they are going to really blow out that Bowman Baseball 22, where they're going to sell that all year long. So they're going to kind of place the hits. They're not going to place them in like the first 5 boxes, basically. Let's put it that way. And so it is a good play if you're if you're a rip and flipper. But if you are a guy who's trying to buy a certain player long term, the more high end cards are going to be in that baseball Bowman 22, and you won't have to necessarily pay as much for a non hobby box product. So it's kind of, there's 2 different ways of doing it. If you're trying to flip it, you did a good play. So I would assume that's what you're trying to do. So.
Yeah, and these are going for so I bought it for $3.99. They're going for about $5.25 right now on the secondary market on eBay.
Yeah.
Holding this up because I want everybody to be able to see what Kendall was talking about. So I think I did okay, and I think there'll be some good cards in there, but it wasn't what I thought it was when I bought it. And then
did you have it shipped
when I was
to you?
checking in with you afterward? I had it shipped to the vault, so
okay.
I can.
So you're not gonna flip them.
TBD on that. It depends. So Topps hasn't shipped them out yet. That's why, like, if you go try to buy them on eBay right now, it says like confirmed order, but it's like a pre-sale kind of thing still. I don't know if anyone has them in hand yet. They haven't shipped mine. So I might list it when I get it and see what I can get for it. But I'll probably do a little bit more research before I do that. There's no checklist released for it. That's the other thing, is like Bowman doesn't appear to actually have released a checklist for this. It's kind of like, it's saying like, it's vague. It's like, it's the same checklist for 2022 Bowman, but there's no 2022 Bowman out either.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm just not finding it, but
no, they don't typically with this product, they don't release a checklist until almost right when it comes out. Because the reason why is they're gathering these.
This is like
a reason why is they're gathering all these players' autographs and sticker autos right now, and so they're trying to put not as much redemption. They're trying to put as least amount of redemption cards as they can in these. And so they kind of wait till like the very last second to just fill it, which I'm sure is a logistical nightmare for Topps.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested to interview a Topps, project manager or something like that, to be like, how do you get all these cards back from these players? I think that would be a super interesting conversation.
That would be amazing. Somebody should do some content around that from either Topps or Panini or Fanatics or they need to make that would be interesting content rather than some of the stuff they put out right now, just like pictures of cards and stuff. But was Khalil Watson perhaps the guy that you were referring to?
Yep.
Okay. Khalil Watson, shortstop prospect.
Thanks for that.
From North Carolina, Wake Forest High School. He was the 16th overall pick, right? 10 picks after your guy, Jordan Lawler. He was Brady House was taken 11th, and then Khalil. House. So
there's so many good players in this draft. So many. Such a good draft class.
Yeah. So I'm excited. So I think that was the reason why I pulled trigger, is I was like, oh, Bowman, like exclusive, whatever. Like I just think I kind of blew my load a little early on this one, but I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, depending on what you want to do with it, 100% you could flip this on eBay sealed. You could probably get $200 on that in about a month. Because there are people that are going to be breaking this product, which is crazy. I don't know how, like, from a breaker's perspective, if you're buying these, first off, that's a huge investment. And there's not a whole lot of cards from a breaker's perspective. Like, you're not breaking 1,000 cards. Like, you're breaking, I mean, I think there's like 250 cards in this thing. Like, and so you're having people pay super high amounts of money per break slot for this. And then you're probably not that many cards. So the value per card slot, if you're looking at like a dollar cost average for that play for the breaking perspective, that's not really a great play, especially if you are buying into breaks. Like, I would always suggest for people to buy into breaks to take the emotion out of it and look at the dollar cost average of per card that you're paying for this break. Like sometimes it's worth it, like if you're like on a really high end product. But for the average product, if you're not getting somewhere between like $1 or $2 per cost average, I would say you're paying a little too much for a break. That's probably another topic for another time. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to get into another wheelhouse that is a little bit unknown. So let's talk about MLS because, and I'll just quickly set the stage. So my understanding is that Topps has released MLS cards since at least like 2016. But the first Topps Chrome release was 2021, which that, and I'm sure you're going to talk about other reasons, but that seems to be probably one reason why you're high on this. And then I'll let you kind of jump in from there. But yeah, why don't you give us an overview, and then I'll ask some questions that I've been excited to ask you about MLS Topps Chrome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, like I said in the intro of this podcast, I am a huge MLS fan. In terms of, I'm big on the league. I think it's an up and coming league. I don't think it is as bad as it has been previously. There have been some great players coming out of the league. And now we're looking at an area where the MLS is putting players forward that are signing multi-million-dollar deals that have limited minutes in MLS. So not only is it becoming a great league, but it's also becoming a league that is farming great players, which is really important. Like, you can be a good league and not have great players. So what that means is you can basically be a retirement league, which is what the MLS has typically been looked at. If you're not farming great players, but you are a good league, typically that means you have good players that are coming to you later in their career, which has been what the MLS has been previously. When we see players like Beckham, Zidane, or Zlatan, not Zidane, I don't think he came here, but Zlatan and some of those guys have come over here in the end of their career type thing. And we are still seeing that a little bit, but I think the MLS is trying to phase that out and go to more of a youth movement here. And we've seen that where the MLS has put a lot of money into building their academies, and teams like FC Dallas have put out some incredible players like McKinney, Pepe, Ferreira. You have guys like Tyler Adams that have come through. Brendan Aronson has come through an academy. Even Alphonso Davies out of Canada, he also came through the MLS academy system. And so I think this is just building and building, and I think we're not anywhere close to being done. And much more than that, I think this is only ramping up. We're going to have incredible world footballers that are coming through an MLS system, because what the MLS has provided is typically the USA is like, we have, our system has always been pay to play. You're going to either be the rich kids or you're going to be a phenomenal kid that's getting a scholarship from somewhere. Never has it been like the typical Brazilian type path where, you're playing soccer every day and somebody sees you on the court and the futsal court, in your barrio, and then all of a sudden you're a MLS or a world star. That's not how it has been in America. Typically it's been a pay to play. The rich kids are playing soccer, stuff like that. I mean, that's how it was for me growing up. but that's going away. These MLS academies are now doing something where it's not a pay-to-play system. They're bringing in talent, and that's what is pay. They are supporting their own within talent, and it's raising the water level. And all over the U.S., you're having these academies that are just going berserk in finding these players. What America is really good at, Paul, is having athletes. We've always had great athletes coming out of our country, and we've always dominated. But this has always been the sport that we have always been the most outside looking in. If you look at basketball, it's always Americans. If you look at football, always Americans. Baseball, well, typically baseball is a little bit different with Central America and stuff like that. But for the most part, the world's greatest sports outside of soccer have been American athletes that have just been dominating because the way that we set up our athletic system. When we get into this market, I think it could be like, here comes all these great Americans, and then you're just going to see a wave of them coming over. And I think we've already seen that with most of the U.S. men's national team players coming from clubs that are overseas. And I think there's not very many, especially in this World Cup cycle, that you're going to see coming out of the MLS. But I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing, because those players that are overseas that are now getting U.S. men's national team minutes are coming from great MLS academies. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm just going to assume that you have some sort of something to say here. I've been on a monologue for a second, so go for it.
No, I think you did a good job about setting the stage for why the league is a strong league. And to me, it sounds like there's multiple reasons why MLS is here to stay as a league. And it sounds like MLS is going to be more like the European leagues than anything else. And what I mean by that is, right now in the main European leagues, you have the Champions League, which basically rules everything, and it kind of makes it less relevant what league you play in. And what it basically means is that the top footballers can transfer wherever, to whatever country's league. So for those of you that don't know, there's a league in Spain, there's a league in France, there's a league in England, there's a league in Germany, there's a league in Italy.
And there's top.
Those are the main leagues, yeah. Right? Yeah, and those are the main leagues. And basically, what we're talking about is kind of like MLS becoming one of those leagues, and being in America. And I think everyone would say they're probably MLS is at the bottom of that list. But I think what we're talking about is that MLS is on the list now, or it's going to be legitimately on the list within the next 24 months, right? And so, so it's not unlike other leagues to have players move from country to country, league to league, but still stay relevant and up their value, lower their value, etc. Maybe you've got a lot of lateral moves and things like that. So, but I think where the MLS from a sports card investing standpoint is super unique is that you've got these two different directions. You've got the direction of because the MLS isn't quite equal or close to equal as those other leagues yet, it's in this unique spot with the cards, because you've got the direction of this guy was a prospect for FC Dallas, and now he's over in this other league. And then you've got the angle of the MLS also long-term establishing itself as a top flight league, right? And then trying to figure out who's next and where's the MLS going to get the next players from, and who's going to be next on that next checklist as a rookie. So right. So it's all about rookie cards and sports card investing. And the tricky part with MLS right now is in the 2021 Topps Chrome release, you've got some RC logos for some guys. So let's say your guy, Paxton Aronson, has an RC logo. There's this Caden Clark guy who I'd like for you to comment on, who has an RC logo. I'd like for you to comment on other guys who have RC logos, but then you've got Ricardo Pepe, who's got all this hype around him, does not have an RC logo, but it happens to be his first major card You've got like what I believe is like his first major auto card in there. You've got inserts, refractors, things like that for Ricardo Pepe. So this is like a really loaded question, but like, how does the audience go about, I guess, two different things? One, figuring out who are the top young rookies in MLS, and then also who are the players in the world that are now relevant, because they're in a different league, but they have their rookie cards in a previous MLS set. Like there's two different ways to break down MLS rookie cards. So take that in whatever direction you want, but that's kind of where I'd like to break things down.
No, I think that's good. Yeah, I think so I kind of broke down MLS as a league a second ago, but MLS or Topps Chrome MLS right here, I think is breaking down. You put it in two different categories. I'm going to actually give it three, because this set in particular is unique because card investors and collectors here are not a fan necessarily of the MLS yet. So they're buying these cards because most of the time these players are doing well overseas or they're doing well on the men's national team. It typically has nothing to do with their MLS career, which I think is kind of what you were getting at. But the fact that this is their rookie card is what makes it significant. But I think there's a third level that is coming, and I actually know three people that really just like collecting the MLS because of their MLS players. So there is a third market, not necessarily as big, but the big, huge markets here for the MLS Chrome cards are the U.S. men's national team, or in a smaller way, there's the Mexican and Canadian men's national team that also have some players here as well. And so that CONCACAF the North American card collector is looking at this Chrome set and is really finding a lot of value here. You've got players from Mexico, Canada, and USA in this set that have rookie cards, rookie autos. There's a bunch of players that have a ton of value here, but you do have to kind of know the league a little bit, because they're guys like these pitch prodigal cards that you're looking at right here are not as valuable as the RC logos typically, unless you find a guy like Gaga Salinas or Gabriel Slonina, who's the keeper for Chicago. His pitch prodigals autograph is the one that's kind of going crazy right now. I bought 4 of them for $40 2 weeks ago, like 4 of them at $40 a piece 2 weeks ago. That card right there actually is what I'm talking about. I bought 4 of those cards 3 weeks ago for $40 a piece. They're selling it now for $120 a piece because he's had 3 clean sheets. There's potential for him getting called up as a men's national team goalie, and they're also comparing him to Buffon. They think that Juventus has been interested in him. He's obviously dang near likely to be a keeper in top 5 leagues in Europe. Like, he is incredible, and he's 17 years old, getting an everyday starting position for Chicago. He's for sure destined to go overseas, and he's for sure destined to either be a Polish national team keeper or United States men's national team keeper. Now, typically keepers don't necessarily go for that same amount of money. So typically we would say like it's kind of like investing in a pitcher almost, but there are still plays to be made if you can get in at the right price point. So, but anyway, I think there's 3 markets here. I think there's national team market. I think there is European, like going overseas to play at big European markets, and these are their rookie cards. And then I also think there is a small MLS market as well that is growing. Now, so the reason Topps 21 is so valuable to me is there's guys in here that will be in Europe. And not only in Europe, I think they will be men's national team guys going forward. And about Paxton Aronson, we've talked about Paxton Pomykal on some of these other ones, but even going to guys like Busio, Sam Vines, Daryl DK, Matt Turner, Brandon Vasquez, and then if you got the non-Americans, you've got Julian Aranjo, you've got Efrain Alvarez, Carlos Vela, and then Canadian, you've got Ayo Akinola. Like there is a lot of very good players on national teams in this top MLS. Yeah, I just said that guy's name, Ayo Akinola. I believe he's Canadian. But there's just a lot of value here, especially for this hobby box is going for like $130 on eBay. Like you can find a lot of value in there. And then you've also got guys that are later in their career without, for instance, I pulled a Daryl DK. It's not a rookie card, a pink Daryl DK that's selling for like $40. And so like it's just a hollow card, but that's, if the hobby box is 130 and you're pulling a Daryl DK second, third year card, but now he's in, now he's getting serious European consideration. Like, I mean, there's just a lot of value here. This James Sands is a good one. Brenner he's a guy with FC Cincinnati. Is like his 14 million. I think he's been less than exciting, which I think is a good time to get in on him. He's been a little bit injured. But there's just a lot of guys on this checklist that I would say are good investments because you can get in really cheap. And if they go over, like for instance, Caden Clark, you asked me about him. He was a New York Red Bulls guy. He goes over. Now he is also following Brendan Aronson into Red Bull Leipzig or Salzburg. So he is following over there. He's already going. Caden, they've actually loaned him back, I believe, for this season, but he's already owned by that club. So, like, Caden Clark will be a European player. And he's young. He's got set. So, obviously, that $129 auto that you're looking at right now, I think is a great buy because he's going to be a national teamer. He's going to be a European star. He's got a rookie card here. It's chrome. It's autoed. It's exactly what you're looking for. And I don't know if you noticed, but Aronson's stuff is as valuable as Mbappe. So if he's following him at all, the U.S. men's national team value pump is going to be there. So that's what I think. And especially with the World Cup this year, buy any of these guys that are going to be on national teams or potentially on national teams. And even beyond that, if you're looking a little bit on a further play, the next World Cup's in North America. These guys are going to be literally marketed all over the place for the next World Cup. We don't have to worry about qualifying for that one. We don't even have to worry about that one. We're in already. Like this next cycle is going to be really important for the United States men's national team, but that World Cup is going to be huge for American soccer, which I think of the MLS, U.S. men's national team, American soccer in general, and the U.S. soccer market is going to take off in the next 5 years. And you're definitely not going to want to look back and be like, dang, I wish I had that Caden Clark for $129.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, okay, so main takeaways here are Kendall just did a great job breaking down the reasons why the Topps 2021 Topps Chrome hobby boxes, as well as a lot of the singles, are great investments right now. I want to make another point real quick, but let me ask a question first on this exact point. Is Ricardo Pepe currently, as of this recording, appropriately priced or a little bit overpriced in terms of his autos? I'm looking at this. This say PSA 9 auto 10, 199 or best offer. It's an autograph refractor.
I think. Oh man. Okay, I have an opinion on Ricardo Pepe that is not the popular opinion. So let's just put it this way. I don't think Pepe is the answer at the number 9 for the United States men's national team. I think he came on really strong. He had a good performance. But he logged, I think it was something like only 800 minutes in the MLS. Like he had maybe one season in the MLS before he got bought by a European club. The kid's 19 years old. That's a lot of pressure. I think he's not even starting at his club in Europe. And so he's getting very limited minutes there. His men's national team, the last couple of times he's been on the field, he's been pretty the ball doesn't find him. I think let's just put it that way. Like he's not necessarily the dominant number 9 that we thought he was going to be, at least early on. And I think there's a lot more guys that could be in that potential lineup that are the ball is finding them. For instance, Ferreira, his teammate at FC Dallas, just scored a hat trick in the first half last week. But he's also a false 9. And I think that that's typical. I think that's kind of what the men's national team is trying to do with bombing wingers. And then you've got with Pulisic and you've got Aronson on one side and then the MMA in the middle. I think a false 9 might be what they're trying to look for, which doesn't necessarily play to Pepe. Kind of plays more towards Ferreira. But also you've got like a bunch of other guys that are kind of coming up and coming. And so I would say don't invest in Pepe right now, because I think not only is he maybe at like his peak right now, or at least at a mountaintop, I think you could wait for a lull to come. And then I mean, I'm not saying he's not a good player to invest in, but I'm saying like if you're like an Elliott wave theory, which is like, I don't know if you're familiar with that term at all, but it's like an investing, stocks question. There's an Elliott wave of an A, B, C, D, E trend line when you're looking at investments. And so typically there's an there's a B correction, a C, which is that the largest part of the peak in the Elliott wave theory, and then a 4 that pulls back, and then a 5 that really launches in terms of product value. Now, we're getting into a lot of different things here, but I think if this card is on a spectrum like a stock, in terms of candles, I think Pepe has run up on A, he's came back on B, he's come up on C, and I think he's in that third launch in terms of an Elliott wave of a third launch. I think we need to pull back a little bit on the 4 and buy him on the way down in this next season. So like, he's probably not going to get a lot of minutes this year. He's really young. He's kind of stumbling a little bit. Wait for that price to come down a little bit before he really comes back on in the World Cup. If we do make it and he does make the team, I think these values are going to go a lot higher. So maybe wait until the summer, and that product might, this card right here in the summer could be worth 120 to 150, and that's a lot better price point than at 200, I think. So I think but not right now.
Yeah, and I think that's what I wanted to know, and that's very, very useful for everybody out there. So like, but this is the card, right? So like, my point is like,
that's the one you want. Actually,
this is the card, but there's the Pitch Prodigies auto as well, right?
Yeah, the Pitch Prodigies is not always as valuable, but sometimes it is, depending on if they have another card in the set. Now, this is another thing that I want to throw at you, Paul. There actually is another set of MLS cards that is more valuable than the Topps Chrome set, but it's harder to get into. So there is a Bowman MLS product, and those cards are going nuts. For instance, like if you want to scroll up and search Brennan Aronson's Bowman card, Bowman rookie, that is what the card is kind of going nuts. But these are a lot more they're a lot more I think it's Brennan Aronson, not Brennan, but you'll get it. Brendan Rodgers right there is a good buy, by the way. But anyway.
We'll get to baseball in a second.
So that's his rookie card right there, the second one. Out of 75. So this is a Bowman rookie card, actually. And so this is technically Brennan Aronson's rookie card. So there is a Bowman set of soccer cards that's a lot harder to get into because there's a limited amount of cards. They basically just do guys that they think are going to be good investments. It's not the whole league. So it's a little bit different product, but we could talk about that at a different point. So
yeah, we can definitely get into that at a different point. That's good to know. Because like, people are going to hear this and
Pepe has a Topps or a Bowman MLS card that's probably the one you want, but it's not autographed.
Yeah. Well, people are gonna hear this and they're gonna start, I think, researching the Topps 2021 product than other tops soccer products, and they're probably going to be looking for familiar things like the Bowman brand, the RC logo, players that they know, Brendan Aronson, people that you've mentioned on the show, and that they might recognize the name. So what I wanted, so I think you've done a really good job of breaking down like some of the differences about the set, about the players, about the product. And one specific question I want to ask you is around like, so if you've never followed basketball and you want to start investing in basketball cards,
Mm-hmm.
I would say you have a connect the dots drawing. And like dot number one would be like, go to NBA.com and look up the previous year's draft. Just the draft results. NBA or Google year NBA draft. Whatever year you're looking to get into. And then you see the draft order, and then player by player, you can click on each player and you can see like how well they performed, what are their stats, who do they play for? Like you can, but I think that the problem with soccer is that there is, at least maybe we can construct one on this show. There doesn't appear to be like a connect the dots where you can be like, go look, and you can do that with baseball prospecting. You can Google 2021 MLB draft, and then you can see all the guys that Kendall and I are talking about. And we talk about their Bowman cards, right? But like a lot of the things that you've just said in the last like 15, 20 minutes are from your knowledge, from your deep knowledge of MLS, from your deep knowledge of sports card investing. But what can the average person do if they want to invest in MLS cards on like a connect the dots basis? Is there an MLS draft that they can reference? Is there like a list of like top players outside of the sports card hobby? What are the best resources for people to learn about who the best prospects are?
Yeah, it's not as easy for soccer. I think that's kind of what you've led to is like there isn't like especially with basketball, you've got limited number of players. I think, for instance, the NBA, I think, has the least amount of players at the top flight level as any other sport, just because, I mean, simply you've got 5 players on the court at one time, but I think there is an MLS super draft. There is. But the best players, I would say, are probably being farmed. And that we've kind of talked about that already, about they're coming through youth clubs. So I haven't necessarily researched this, for instance, but this is where I would start. There is a 22 under 22 list that the MLS puts out. And basically it's the top players that are under 22 years old. Brendan Aronson was on that list. I believe Paxton is now on that list. Palmy Call's been on that. Pepe's been on that list. I would say that's probably where I would start, because they do Bowman or Topps Chrome does put out a 22 under 22 card list. But I would say this is probably a great place to start. And, I didn't necessarily, I'm sure in the comments, people are going to be like, why didn't you say this? Well, I just came up with that off the dome, like this is something that we didn't, that's a question that Paul's just talking to me about. But I think if I was completely, just say, where would you start to a guy that was just talking to me at a card show, I would say this list is where I would start. For instance, that Mamadou Fall guy, he scored 3 goals, I think, already this year. And I wouldn't have known who that is unless I was watching the LAFC game last night, and he had a great header coming off of a Carlos Vela cross that almost went in, and then they just started talking about him in the broadcast. I wouldn't even have known who he is necessarily unless I had watching the MLS. But he is on this 22 under 22 stock watch, which I think, obviously, this is a video, but I do know that there is a 22 under 22 list. You might have to dig a little bit for it, but there are 22 under 22 cards as well. So Mamadou Fall might not be in the 2021. He might be in 2022. Yeah. So these Tops Now cards are actually, weirdly enough, more valuable in MLS than they are in any other sport. Typically, it's like these Tops Now are just like cash grabs for Tops, but because typically you have guys that are coming up on the scene in MLS without cards. The rookie scene is like you can play rookies really easily in the MLS. Sometimes these Tops Now cards are the first ones on the scene, which is another asset to MLS that's a little bit unique. But so yeah, like for instance, Brendan Vasquez scored a brace in 2 straight weeks, and he's the striker for Cincinnati. He's been around for a little bit, but his Tops Now card or what's selling on Tops right now. So he has cards in the Tops Chrome MLS set, but his Tops Now card is what's actually selling right now, which is weird. So it's kind of something that I'm also learning into as well. I've probably been investing in soccer cards for about a year and a half now, but typically I've only gone into European cards, and I've probably in the last 6 or 7 weeks have I been diving into this MLS stuff. So I'm almost a rookie as well, although I've spent significant time over the last 6-7 weeks diving into this because this is kind of our job. It's something that I've put a lot of time looking into, but there's still caveats I'm just now learning. For instance, this Tops Now stuff, I was like, no, that's not valuable. It's just a cash grab like any other sport. But now I'm like, why do people actually want these cards? Because I don't understand it really, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a matter of this appears to be Mamadou Fall's only card.
It's his only card. Yeah.
From either from any of the card companies that any of us are familiar with. And
right.
So, I am familiar with the call up. They did that. Tops Now did that with Wander Franco last year. He had a call up card.
Yeah.
It's a way of distinguishing the card without putting RC on it. And we know all the reasons why they would or wouldn't want to do that. Some Tops Now cards have RC on it, others don't. I know Kalenic with the Mariners had a bunch of Tops Now cards last year with RC on it. It looks like they're experimenting with call up. Yeah, it's just you're right. I mean, it's a moving target. There are no easy answers. I think you did an amazing job breaking this down. There is a super draft, but there's no connect the dots or paint by numbers where it's like as easy as saying, hey, just do these things and all of a sudden this is a way to research this. It's like you really have to you have to pay attention to what's happening. You have to read a lot, maybe even watch games like Kendall does.
Well,
but
I know
like
on
for
the
a guy
Tops,
like me,
like the cardboard connection there, if you go to the Tops 21 Chrome on that tab right there, there is a section on there that has the 22 under 22. I think it's right above that section where you were just at.
Yeah, you're right. I did see it. So Cardboard Connection does a great job with like the checklist, and you can actually use this as a good research to say like, here are the autos. They do have like RC designation. So for example, one thing I did in preparation for talking to Kendall and just doing my own research is like, I found this Cardboard Connection checklist, and then they have RC next to, so you can Google all the guys that have RC next to them, and you can read about how they're doing, what position they play, how old are they, like you can see kind of the hype around them. Then there's the pitch prodigies. So if you got, I still haven't bought one of these boxes, but I'm really close to buying one, but I'm trying to determine like what's going to really push me over the edge. And I think a lot of the things Kendall's saying is probably going to push me over the edge. But if you could see like all the RC designations on this checklist for not only the base checklist, but the pitch prodigies, and to Kendall's point, not only the autograph checklist, but the future stars checklist and the 22 under 22. I did see it too, by the way. I'm not seeing it now, but I did see that there was a 22 under 22 on one of these checklists on Cardboard Connection. Let me just search the browser. They don't seem to have it on this particular checklist, but I did see that somewhere. So I like your thought process with that. And then, just researching, I think, player by player. But I think what's elusive to me is how do you find – you talked about Ricardo Pepe kind of moving along the different points of the stock chart. other than talking to you, who knows what they're talking about, or doing a heck of a lot of research on maybe Caden Clark is the next guy, how do you find the next guy before they're the guy? I mean, it's so elusive, right? So,
Yeah.
is it like buying all the guys? Is it buying the box? What's the best play? Like what I think what's the best play for like the simple for the person listening to this going, oh, I'm interested in that, but I don't want to spend a bunch of time researching it. It's probably just to buy the box, right? Because to your point
Yeah.
earlier, a lot of these guys will play in Europe. A lot of these guys have have chances to be on the U.S. men's national team or other national teams. And then also as the MLS grows in popularity, there could be that third level of investor where people are buying because they like what they're doing in the MLS. So maybe it's just to not worry about singles and buy the box, but rest assured that in this particular box, there's a lot of good plays. And then I think if that is the case, how would you answer the question of like, well, what happens in the 2022 release? Is like, how do we know, how do we get a gauge for like who's who in that 2022 release? Are we going to be able to like go to that super draft and be like, oh, this guy has an RC designation on the checklist in the 2022 Chrome set. Let me see where he was drafted in the super draft. Oh, he was drafted 5th to this team. Like, you see what I'm saying with like how you kind of do that,
Yeah.
the web of research there?
So the super draft typically is not as important in MLS as it is in other drafts, because the MLS super draft, although it's semi important, there's typically only 2 to 3 players that end up even being starters in the super draft. And typically that's because they're getting drafted to teams that are expansion teams that are super bad. Because they're typically guys that are going to college.
It's an expansion draft.
Essentially, I mean, basically these are guys that are not good enough to go to Europe. They've played college soccer, so they're already a little bit older than some of the guys that are coming through youth academies. And so it's almost like you're drafting depth almost. Some of the players can come in and be, crazy good. For instance, Frankie Amaya was drafted number 1 overall in 2018, I think, out of UCLA. He was great at UCLA. He came onto the MLS scene, played really good for Cincinnati. Now he plays for the New York Red Bulls, and he's getting consistent minutes there and logging a lot of assists. So Frankie Amaya is like a guy who's like, okay, he wasn't necessarily a depth piece. Julian Gressel was a German guy who came through the draft, who's now playing very big minutes on a DC United team. But the majority of people coming out of the MLS Super Draft are depth pieces or long-term plays for the general rounding out of a franchise. I think the star power players in the MLS are either DPs or Generation Adidas players, which are guys that are coming up through farm systems. Generation Adidas basically is a designation that the MLS has put on players that you can pay them. They have a lot of different rules. It's just like the MLS has a lot of really strange rules for a league. For instance, there's general allocation money, there's GAM and TAM, which is it's technical allocation money, general allocation money, and then there's DPs, and you can only have that's designated players, and you can also have an under 22 designated player. So the MLS in its structure is confusing, which makes everything else confusing about this. But there are super draft players. For instance, Walker Zimmerman, that guy right there, and Miles Robinson are both defenders on the U.S. men's national team, and they came through the super draft. So there are players that are there, but it kind of takes them a little bit to kind of get big. For instance, Walker Zimmerman was a nice defender, but he wasn't big until he went from FC Dallas to LAFC. And when he went to LAFC, he was like their franchise player right as they started their expansion. So then he came to Nashville and was kind of their star, and now he's the U.S. men's national team center back. So, you've seen these growth come out of a long period of time. So I wouldn't say that the super draft is like where you would start to connect the dots. I would start with a 22 under 22, or maybe just look at Generation Adidas players that are currently playing in the MLS, and maybe you start there. For instance, that Ben Bender guy is playing for Charlotte right now, and he is filthy. definitely the best player that I've seen in this last year's Super Ben Bender. So I would say if you're looking at the top 22 drop, Ben Bender's cards are going to be filthy, and he's for Charlotte, which is the new expansion team this year, and he assisted their first goal of the season. And so anyway, blah blah.
This is awesome. Okay, so
I've talked enough to say this is kind of confusing, and you might just want to listen to this podcast.
You want to keep listening to this podcast because we're going to keep talking about MLS. I'm going to keep following it, and I am where the audience is right now. Like I am totally where you are right now, and Kendall is helping me so much. I think he's helping you guys too. Here's my new process based on what Kendall's saying, and it's going to be fluid. It's going to be a moving target. But here's what I would do. Here's actually what I will do in my free time throughout this week and probably into this weekend. I am going to do the following things. I am going to Google 22 under 22 MLS, and I'm going to watch some highlights, read that, write down some names. Then I'm going to Google Generation Adidas MLS, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Then I'm going to narrow those names down, and this is just my strategy. So Kendall will probably say you don't necessarily need to do this, but because you can only buy so many cards and you can only get excited about so many players, I will probably limit my list down to like goal scoring players.
Yep.
Maybe scoring midfielders and strikers and guys who are going to score. I'm probably not going to touch more defensive midfielders. I'm probably not going to touch defenders or goalkeepers. That's not where I want to put my money. It's kind of like Kendall was saying, it's kind of like buying pitchers. To each his own. Buy pitchers, buy goalkeepers if you want. It's just not me. I'm probably going to go strikers, scoring midfielders, and use that process. And then I'm going to go from probably like a list of maybe 20 names down to like 5. I'm going to Google the crap out of them, read articles about them. Whoever has the most hype, I'm all about the hype machine. Whoever has the most hype and whoever's probably the youngest in the biggest markets with the potential to go to European clubs, I'm probably going to get the most excited about. eBay their cards, figure out what cards they have. Maybe it's this Mamadou Fall guy, maybe it's not. And then I'm going to make decisions on like what plays can be made with those cards. And I've been doing this a lot in my life with different things, so I'm going to be fairly quick with this process. And you're probably going to see me put a lot of these guys on the sports card investment report. So if you want to use that as a cheat sheet, and I think that I can come back to Kendall every other week and I can say, hey man, where do I need to redo the soccer rankings in my sports card investment report? We can have a discussion about that on the podcast. But I'm going to try to sprinkle in some MLS guys. I do have Ricardo Pepe in the top 100 right now. And I may need to make some adjustments based on what Kendall's saying, but I do think my write-up on Pepe is pretty similar to what he's saying. Like I don't want you to overpay for Pepe's cards just because I don't want you guys to fall into the trap of like U.S. men's national team hype. The thing I do like about all these guys is that they're just so young. So if these MLS cards, I think the RC designation is huge. I'm going to put an exclamation point on my MLS discussion. I am probably like this Caden Clark card, for example. I am probably more apt to buy a card like this than any other card. He's a midfielder. That means he's in goal scoring position. I don't know if he scores a lot of goals. I don't really know anything about him other than what Kendall told me a minute ago. But I do know that this is a chrome card. Top certified autograph. It looks like an on-card auto. No, I think it's a sticker. Sticker auto, whatever. Top certified autograph, chrome card, RC designation. Boom. Good price. Kid's probably 19, 20, 21. And if he's going to be on the U.S. men's national team or in a league in Europe or whatever.
He already is on Salzburg.
There you go. He's already on Salzburg. So, anyway, bigger league in Europe. I think this is what we're talking about. So I have not bought any MLS cards. I have not bought any MLS sealed product, but I think that this episode is getting me
Caden is 18 years old, by the way.
So seems like a good buy. Maybe I'll hit this. Maybe I'll hit this make offer button and see if I can get it. Maybe I'll make an offer at 99 and see if I can save a little on the budget there.
He only played
Probably
3.
getting-
I think he only played last year before Salzburg bought him. So
Here's the other thing I want to add. I'm glad you said that because that's a good point that you make. I think you want to look at experience, but I also think you want to Google these guys' recent news and just make sure they haven't torn their ACL, make sure they haven't twisted their ankle, make sure they haven't it sounds like a Captain Obvious thing to say, but like just because we're saying this is a good buy on the podcast doesn't mean that this dude doesn't have like plantar fasciitis, chronic plantar fasciitis issues.
Oh man, I was completely wrong. He's not on Salzburg. He's actually on the bigger Red Bulls team of Leipzig. So Tyler Adams and him play on the.
I think we need to Google him and make sure he's not injured or make sure
he's
that he has
loaned
a clean
out to
bill
the
of
New
health,
York
and then
Red
this
Bulls
card's probably
right
a
now.
buy. So. Okay.
He's loaned
so
out
he's
to the
signed
New York
with.
Red Bulls.
So that's another caveat. Like they can be signed with a major European club, but they can be playing for an MLS club.
Yeah. I think he's one of probably the only ones that has been that way because when they signed him, it was like in the middle. It was like in the off season for the MLS because another caveat to the MLS versus European soccer is they play at different seasons.
Live on the show.
The show. Dude, I was like, if you don't put an offer in, I am. So go for it. Dude, I hope
$99.
I hope you get it.
Top line cards. Reply to me. I'll probably pay $115. Let's have a deal here. Come on.
I will say that he played 15 games for the Red Bulls in 2020 or in 2021, and he scored 6 goals. That's really good.
I'm doing this backwards. I'm doing this backwards, by the way. Caden Clark news.
As a 17-year-old, he scored 6 goals. That's a goal, a half a goal a game. That's pretty good, guys.
Yeah, that's great. That's great is what that is. So I don't see any anything to be worried about related to any Caden Clark news. So I think he had an appendectomy a year ago. But I think we're good. I think we're in good shape. Seems like a clean bill of health.
Do you use the what's that website called? Do you use Transfer Market?
Yes. Well, only reason I know about it is because I Google a bunch of soccer players, and Transfer Market seems to be like in the top 5 search results on every single player. So
yeah. So typically that's where I look up a lot of
transfer
market.
Transfer Market without the E. Yeah, without the E, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
Without the second E. Transfer Market. Here we go. Another tip. So Kendall's doing a great job. We're throwing out tips. Transfer Market without the second E.US is a good place to get your up to the minute, in-depth football, soccer news.
So he was bought for $2 million from Red Bulls to Red Bulls. So they paid enough money to be within the system to transfer to another team. And now his apparent worth is $3.85 million.
So here's his profile. Kendall's probably looking at this too. Yeah,
I am.
$3.85 million, age 18. This dude checks all the boxes, man. Yep. He checks all the boxes for an American, for a dude who's in our target demographic.
And get this, he's this valuable.
Sports card investor.
He's this valuable, and he hasn't made a top flight U.S. men's national team appearance yet. So, let's just say, so he is he the
new Yunus Musa? Am I higher on this guy than I am on Yunus now?
Musa's logged minutes. This guy's not even there yet. His value's at
But I was high on Musa before he logged minutes. That's what I'm saying. Am I We're creating a guy here that hasn't even been a guy yet.
I bought my first Caden Clark card in June of last year because like this dude is incredible. I watched him live and I was like, holy cow, this guy is taking over this field. And he's 17.
Kendall is so ahead of the game. I'm so lucky that Kendall's on my podcast. God, this is amazing. I think we have a new headline for this episode. Is Caden Clark the sports card to invest in now? Exclamation point, question mark.
I think he's definitely one of the best Americans to invest in right now.
I'll tell you what, Kendall, like us or not, I don't think Sports Cards Nonsense is talking about Caden Clark anytime soon.
Let's go.
That's why you should listen to us. I love Sports Cards Nonsense, by the way, but this is why you should listen to us. This is what we're doing for you.
Look at that. I mean, he's had 2 United States men's national team under 20 appearances, and he scored 1 goal. Come on, this guy scores goals like crazy, and he's a center attacking mid.
Do I need to go back and just buy this card instead of messing around with an offer? That's where I'm at now. I'm at just buying it.
I've literally sold this kid on you.
I think Kendall might swoop this. He might come in and swoop this from me right now. Luckily I don't edit this right away and air it. I usually edit this 4 days later and then air it. So
yeah, so by the time this
gone, by the time you people you're gonna have to get your own Caden Clark RC Topps Chrome Refractor Auto. Is it numbered? If it's numbered, I'm buying it right now. It's not serial numbered. If it was serial numbered, I'd buy it right now. See, you got to find something wrong with every card, people. Just calm yourself down. Find something wrong with the card. Talk yourself out of it. All right. Anything else to add on MLS for Dummies before we spend a few minutes on baseball's back, baby?
I'm good. I feel like I have literally given you everything I've got. So
you have done an amazing job. I'm sure the audience agrees. And let's hit on it real quick because we're excited about baseball. Everybody is. I mean, it's time to see some of the guys that we love get back on the field at the major league level. We've got the stars. We've talked about him quite a bit recently. Vladdy Jr., Shohei. You got Soto.
Dude, can I just say that gauntlet literally went so much in my favor? Remember when I was like, yeah,
because you eliminated Tatis. Tatis's injury, can't stay healthy. I think you actually said like the way that Tatis plays, his style of play lends itself to injury. And then I think actually like you said this, but I cut it out. I think you said the style off the field, the way he rides a motorcycle also lends itself to injury. And then boom, you were right. You were right.
I just was like this guy, he's just a wild card, man. Like I feel like, he can't get out of his own way almost, And then as soon as that news came across, I was like, dang it, I'm brilliant, Paul.
I was very happy about how brilliant you were because again, like I'm posting these things like 2, 3, 7 days after the fact, and you're so right that I didn't have to eliminate it. I could just post it and say in the description, this was before Tatis's injury.
If it was like, I was like, yeah, Vladdy Jr. is such a good investment. And then he goes out and breaks his wrist or something and needs 3 months surgery.
Yeah.
That'd have been so bad. But that's not what happened. That is not what happened.
No. Because you're smart and you nailed it.
Thanks, bud.
You can see into the future. So speaking of that, let me ask you a couple different questions. We'll maybe keep this short on the question side and then let you do a lot of talking. So, all right. One question I have is, which already established superstar at the major league level is going to outperform their current value, and should we buy, and which cards of theirs should we buy?
Ooh, that is a great question. So which superstar that's at the major league level already? Because the reason why Yeah, the reason why Paul's making that distinction is I am a prospect fiend. Like, I literally live and die off of who's in the minor leagues and what they're doing. So typically, I don't invest in major leaguers when they're already at the major league level. There is a couple guys that I actually am investing in right now that are at the major league level or have just been at the peak of, maybe they've just started or you know, they kind of hit a bumpy road or a bumpy patch. So my favorite guy right now, I'm not saying he's the best buy, or, you know, like the guy who's going to exponentially grow, but the guy that is my favorite right now to invest in is Lubob or Luis Robert. He is the outfielder for Chicago White Sox. He's had a little bumpy stretch. The White Sox haven't really been like when he first came up, his value was insane. And then, you know, like Wander Franco has kind of come up and taken some of that media attention. You've gotten Juan Soto that's taken some media attention. You've gotten Tatis and Vladdy Jr. have taken some of that attention. And Lubob is legit. He is legit. And that White Sox team is going to be good for a long time. And he hurt himself last year, which I think took some of that media attention off. I think he's maybe one crazy week away from his cards going nuts again. And I think he also has a really unique card. So his Bowman First Chrome is actually not him. It's not an action shot. It's him sitting at a desk, like when he's signing, which I think just adds to the whole lore of this of him. You know, like when cards are just a little bit different, when I can say Luis Roberts' first Bowman card, and you can be like the one sitting at his desk, like when people already are like thinking what card you're talking about, that typically is able to add more like intrinsic value in the later half of a deal. So I would say if you are looking at a major leaguer who is particularly undervalued, Luis Robert, I think, is undervalued right now compared to where he is on a top 100 checklist of the top players in the game. Another major leaguer,
that's another major
leaguer that is way down the list. So he is a major leaguer. He has been a major leaguer for the past couple of years, and he is a riskier play. This is a riskier play, guys, is Alejandro Kirk. Yeah, that's the card I'm talking about. Luis Robert sitting at his, you know, his jersey day, I think, is when they were giving him his White Sox jersey for the first time. And they actually extended him before he ever saw the field. So they gave him a long-term contract before he was even in the major leagues. So the White Sox really believe in this guy. And for the fact that a PSA 10
so the Bowman Chrome prospects PSA 10 for 130, like, do you think this is a good buy right now?
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's undervalued.
Okay.
I mean,
good to know. Love that.
So for instance, he's an outfielder. He plays a premium position. He's a hitter. He hits a lot of jacks. So that's a premium position thing as well. He's young. He's going to be good for a long time. And the fact that the Sports Card Investor has him at an 80 in baseball, the 80th most valuable baseball card right now, is insane. This guy definitely should be top 10, I think. And so I think there's a lot of room to run. You're already seeing his 30-day and 7-day projections going up. So get in while you can, because the White Sox are going to be good this year. Luis Robert, Lubob is in full health. This guy is going to tear up the scene. And I think he's got a potentially comeback player of the year in him. If not, potentially fighting for that MVP spot.
Wow. Moving him up on the Sports Card Investment Report for sure. This is a power-packed episode. All right, we got Lubob. The next name you said was Alejandro Kirk, so I'll let you go on that.
That guy's way further down the list. Like, I don't even know if Sports Card Investor has his cards. I bought a PSA 10.
This is a super sleeper of yours?
Yeah, this is a super sleeper. So this is a guy that is a nice hitting. He's a catcher, so typically I don't like to invest in catchers, but I think is undervalued enough right now that you could probably pull some of his cards. So if you look at his Bowman Chrome Auto, I think I got his so like this is significantly cheaper than a lot of other players. That card right there, that PSA 10, I bought in December I think I paid $60 for it. And so if you're getting a Bowman Chrome Auto PSA 10 for around $60, you would say that guy is probably way deep in the minor leagues. This guy is literally their starting catcher. And he's young. He didn't really have a great first appearance on the scene last year. He got overshadowed by Gabriel Moreno, who's also on that staff. Gabriel Moreno is one of the top catchers in the minor leagues right now. And don't look past Alejandro Kirk. He is very different in terms of play style, but the first Jays home run of the year in the minor leagues or in spring training was Alejandro Kirk. And so it's just like, I think he has enough there that you could make a good play on it. He's not a guy that's going to be a Lou Bob. He's not a guy that's going to fight for an MVP slot. He might even get traded because Gabriel Moreno is coming up. But I think he's a guy that you could make some money on. That's all I'm saying.
Kendall, we have breaking news.
What is it?
Offer
do you have a Caden Clark? Paul has it.
Caden Clark. Offer accepted. $99. Caden Clark. Thank you very much. Will be sent to the vault, and
when that gets sold for $25,000, you owe me a coffee, sir. Just kidding.
Should we you will benefit from this, Caden Clark. Believe me, you will benefit. Now the question is, should we have this graded? Should I send it to you?
I think so. I mean, if it's centered well, you can send it to me and I can look it over with my...
I'll send you the picture. I'll send you a picture after the episode and you can let me know what you think.
See this right here, Paul? This is my little grading 101.
Dr. McKee.
Kendall.
Dr. Lefty McKee. All right.
Looking for surface damage.
Love it. Okay, so That's great awesome, baseball plays, by the way. Great baseball plays. Lou Bob and Alejandro Kirk, phenomenal. Who else you got?
Now, I will say Alejandro Kirk is definitely more risky. I don't want to get out of this episode and for people to be like, this guy's investing in Kirk? What the heck? I just think there is value there. Or in this series, we're talking about
that's a good question.
How can you make money back?
Yeah. So with Louis Robert, I think there's a clear path to making money because he's a slugger. And you mentioned the fact that he could be in the MVP race. With Alejandro Kirk, what will he have to do? Well, first of all, his cards appear to be pretty cheap. This one that I'm looking at right now, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's there's still 2 days left, so it's hard to tell what this is going to go for. But the current bid, there's 3 bids, and the current bid is $40. So, do you think this will go for 100, 125 maybe? That's pretty cheap for a first Bowman Chrome Auto. What's the ceiling on this, and what would it take for him to get to the ceiling? How does he have to perform?
This is a guy that is not. This is a guy whose card prices have suffered because he doesn't get any media attention. Once this guy so I think there's a couple of different ways that Alejandro Kirk could play into a guy that we would want. So here is a out of $4.99 that sold in February 27th, PSA 10 that sold for $103. So I would assume this card probably tops out around $75, which is fine. It maybe even $60 because but I think this guy could potentially be a guy that benefits from a trade. The Toronto Blue Jays also, there's 2 things that this guy could benefit from, either a trade or if he's not traded, the Toronto Blue Jays are freaking good. They also have been in talks with potentially getting even better by acquiring Jose Ramirez from the Guardians. If they do that, I would assume that Kirk is in that trade or Moreno, which either way would open up him to be more media profiled. But he's been a guy that has just typically just gone under the radar all the way up, and he comes in and he's not necessarily doesn't look like an athlete. Like even this picture of him on the card is probably more flattering than what he actually looks like. He's kind of a bigger dude. He's basically a guy that people would say, yeah, that guy's only a baseball player. Nowhere else could he play a professional sport. He's just a guy that looks like I'm just going to be nice here and just say I'm just going to leave it there. But he just doesn't look like a guy who's going to be good. But he has that Yerman Mercedes build of like a guy who's just a slugger. He's got a small strike zone. He can turn on a ball easily, and he's a guy that has pretty good hitting numbers. And so I'm going to say that he's either going to benefit from Gabriel Moreno getting traded, him getting traded, or him just being the starter on a really, really good Toronto Blue Jays team this year. And so the Toronto Blue Jays are going to get a lot of play. They're going to get a lot of media attention. They're probably going to go pretty far in the wild card or in the playoffs, barring any injuries to that staff. And they probably are better than the Red Sox and the Yankees. And so they're probably going to fight with the Tampa Bay Rays for the first in that division. And that division gets a lot of national televised games. And so I would imagine Kirk's cards are going to go up because I think he's going to play well against top competition. There you go.
Great. 3 paths to success. That's what I like to hear. I think you got to know if you're going to invest in a guy, you got to see potential paths to the card prices increasing in value. And sounds like Kirk's got a few possibilities. And I would say this is dirt cheap for a first.
I mean, he's a guy that's like literally his floor could not get any lower.
Yeah, this is great. Anybody else at the major league level you want to shout out before we go to the minor leagues?
Man, I know I don't want to feel like I only talk about the same guys over and over, but this is your last chance to get in on O'Neal Cruz. Please get in on some O'Neal Cruz. Anybody who's listening on here, this guy is going to take the league by storm. He's incredible, guys. What he's doing, the Pirates are potentially putting him in center field now. They're creating positions for this guy to be on the field. He had like 4 at-bats last year, and one of them he golfed a home run. So it's just like the pitch was the worst pitch I've ever seen in my life, and he ends up taking it yard. This guy is so, so good, and people are so low on him. Like, I think even the MLB has him as like the 15th ranked prospect. I think that is hogwash, Paul. I think he's definitely top 5. Like, this guy is so good at baseball. He's so good at hitting. Please go get some O'Neal Cruz cards. He is phenomenal.
All right. I've already bought 1 card on this show. I might need to buy another one. I see a O'Neal Cruz 2016 Bowman Chrome base auto, 190 or best offer.
Yep.
That feels like a good potential purchase to me.
Yeah. So his autos are floating around 160 to 200.
This might be a bet. 160 to 200. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of them. Okay. That feels like a good buy. There's a couple other interesting ones if you have a bigger budget, which I don't know if I do. But there's I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I'm sure that I'll get that in the comments. So here we go. O'Neal Cruz, first purple refractor auto out of 250, $435 if you have the bigger budget. Here's another one. Refractor auto out of $499.
Do the one yeah, I think there's one that's the blue one. The blue O'Neal Cruz cards are selling for stupid money, and I think that's only going to get better because his autograph's blue, the Dodger blue, the Bowman blue.
Here's a PSA 10.
Yeah, $700.
This is a Bowman Chrome PSA 10 $700. I mean, I'd go to that one if you have the budget.
Yeah.
Here's an SGC 10. Got to make sure it's a Chrome auto, first Bowman auto Chrome. Got to also, if you get a serial numbered one, I'd go in that direction. Now this is the guy that there's two things I really like about this guy that are random, have nothing to do with baseball. Number one, they spelled his name wrong on his card.
Yeah,
so
they did.
So you told me this the first episode we did where you mentioned O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah.
You told me they spelled his name wrong. And I love that because what bigger chip on your shoulder could you possibly have? Yeah. I know Tom Brady was drafted in the 5th round, but they didn't spell his name wrong on his cards. This guy, bigger chip than Tom Brady for sure.
And the Dodgers were like, yeah, we've got so much talent over here. We can afford O'Neal Cruz to go to the Pirates. Yeah, like, let's just send him over there. You know, he's probably not as good as everyone else we've got in here. Got Gavin Lux and some other guys. Like, they're like, we're going to send him to the Pirates. His name is already spelled wrong. He went ahead and signed all the cards anyway because he didn't think that it was that he was good enough for them to actually care. You know, like,
two chips on his shoulder.
Oh yeah.
Traded away by the Dodgers, spelled his name wrong. Here's the other thing I like about this guy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't he 6'7"?
Yeah, and I would say that's probably doing the Kevin Durant effect. He's definitely taller than that.
Because they want him to be
shorter because typically baseball players get like I don't want to say a bad rap, but people just assume that tall baseball players are going to be so easy to strike out because their strike zone's going to be bigger. But I mean, there's really not statistical or mathematical advantage to that. Like, that hasn't actually been proven. But for some reason, people just always assume that tall baseball players can't play. And Carlos Correa signs a huge mega deal with with the Twins this year, and he's 1 inch shorter than O'Neal Cruz. Like, this is just so dumb. Like,
yeah, and isn't Ken Griffey Jr. like 6'3"?
Yeah, I mean, guys, like, some of the best players ever have been huge, and I think my favorite thing about him is that he's hitting top 5 in the league exit velocities. This guy might be tall and skinny, but he is wrecking the ball. Have you ever seen Giancarlo Stanton hit a baseball? It's phenomenal. This guy is hitting the ball as hard as Giancarlo Stanton.
Is there any reason to see value in his rookie cards at the major league level? Because I see that he's on some checklists. I see that he was in the Topps Heritage checklist release, which is like $99 a box. I'm not getting one. I don't recommend it as an investable product, but there's Wander in there and there's O'Neal Cruz in there and there's different variations and things like that. So depending on budget, like, would people see value in a MLB Topps release of some sort, O'Neal Cruz rookie card this year?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Series 2 will probably have a lot of O'Neal Cruz in it. I really do not see how the Pirates don't start him day one and he just wrecks all. There's so many good Pirates. Like, their team is really bad, but has been really bad, but their drafts have been so good the past couple of years and their acquisitions have been so good. They fleeced the Dodgers. They fleeced the Rays. They've just gotten incredible value back, and they've got guys like, we saw Cabrian Hayes come up last year, but we've got Nick Gonzalez in that farm system. You've got Henry Davis in that farm system. You've got Indy Rodriguez, who's another guy that nobody knows about that is absolutely a mega buy, Indy Rodriguez. But O'Neal Cruz is also in there. There's just so many guys for that Pirates team that are going to be fun to watch. And I think from an investor standpoint, just load up on Pirates right now. And O'Neal Cruz should be leading that, and that's saying a lot considering Nick Gonzalez is also on that team.
Love it.
But I would also say, just a little caveat there, don't invest in Bowman Heritage. It's the worst product that Topps comes out with.
There's just a lot of, I hate to use the word junk because I don't like when people refer to the junk wax era, but there is a lot of junk out there. Let me rephrase that. There's a lot of cards that are just not investable. They're just not investable cards. And that's why you should check out the Sports Card Investment Report, because even if the player is obvious to you, it's understanding which cards to buy and which cards to avoid. That I think is the biggest thing that report provides. But definitely this episode has power packed me to the point where when it airs, you're going to have to check out the Sports Card Investment Report, because it will look drastically different based on this conversation. And I want it to be your cheat sheet for the spring and summer in terms of how to make money on sports card investing. So before we wrap up here, Kendall, another power pack 2 hours, by the way. Good work out of us. You're welcome, everyone who can swim and or run a marathon while listening to our podcast. Who are your top 3 to 5 prospect cards that you think will rise this baseball season?
Okay. Gonzalez.
Not prospect cards, guys who will not necessarily make it to the majors, but will see an increase in value in their prospect cards. That's probably the best way to word that question.
Yeah, I've named some of my favorites already. Indy Rodriguez is another guy that I'm really high on who's in the Pirates system. And then Nick Gonzalez is also a guy in the Pirates system that I'm really high on.
Okay.
Now, so I will just exclude those just for this exercise. Indy Rodriguez is probably really cheap, but he's a guy that's just wrecking the ball right now. Like we've seen some backfield footage of him already this year in spring training, and he's just tearing the ball apart. Some guys that I really like are I think there's a guy from Boston, Tristan Costas, is a can't miss. He is a can't miss. Like if there's a guy that's more for sure as a great major leaguer, it's Tristan Costas. He's probably going to be up in the next couple of years, but if he is so dang good, please go get some Tristan Costas cards. And the reason why he's 18 on this list is because he's not going to necessarily be the flashiest major leaguer, but he might end up logging the most significant at bats later in his career. We compare him to Freddie Freeman, who's a guy that is huge for the Braves last year. Yeah, and so Tristan Costas is definitely a guy you're going to want to keep your eye on and probably get some shares of him in your portfolio. He's definitely a guy that I would say is the guy that you want right now. Another guy that I'm really high on right now that's a really deep sleeper is Griffin Conan. I think he either led the minors last year or he had the second most home runs out of anybody. And the Marlins left him off of the 40-man roster. So if there was a Rule 5 draft this year, he would have been eligible. And I think he would have probably moved to a different team if there was a Rule 5 draft. And I think he would have been in the major leagues this year on somebody else's team because of his pop and power. So Griffin Conan is another one that I like a lot. Let's see. So I've said Griffin.
Is he related to Jeff Conine by any chance?
He's Jeff Conan's son. So that's another thing about him that is really cool and unique. He's also his best friend growing up was Aram Layton, who's the CEO of JustBaseball.com. So that has nothing to do with his profile, but it's actually kind of cool that we get some insider information. He's done a lot. He hit a bunch of bombs last year, but his swing changed a bunch. And so he's spent all offseason locking in with a hitting coach on exactly a repeatable swing that can be more and more consistent. And I think this guy is going to tear it up this year in the minor leagues. He's already hitting really, really well in spring training. And I really don't see why the Marlins didn't put him on the 40-man roster. But and Griffin actually took it as a little bit of like a chip on his shoulder, or he's like, are you kidding me? I hit the most bombs in all of the minor leagues last year, and you're going to keep me not on the 40-man roster. So I think he would have been picked up in a Rule 5 draft by another team, which if you know anything about baseball, which that basically means that if you're in a Rule 5 eligible draft and you get drafted by another team, they have to put you on their major league roster and they have to keep you there all year, or you do go back to the team that you previously were on. So he would have, if that would have been the case, he would have been on, like, for instance, like the Diamondbacks or something all year. So he would have been able to have a complete year to figure out what it was look like at the major league level. I like Alek Thomas as well, who's speaking of Diamondbacks, is probably going to be a high floor guy in the major leagues. He probably is really close to the major leagues as well. If he doesn't make it out of camp, he's probably going to be really close to coming out of the minor leagues into the major leagues really soon. So I don't know if you were looking for necessarily deep dives, but Alek Thomas is a good buy. I don't know if he has as much star power, but he will be a very high floor guy. So he's going to be a very good major leaguer. Right. That's his card right there. The speckled auto that was like 5th down or something like that you just did.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's pretty affordable right now. The reason why is he's just going to be a really, really good baseball player. Like, I don't know if he ends up being a top 10 player, but he's definitely a guy that's going to fight and be an everyday player that you don't want to pitch to in the Diamondbacks system. And he does have potential to reach that upper echelon, but he definitely is going to be a high floor guy. So he's going to be a major leaguer for a long time. So kind of a different play. If you're looking at a risk assessment of your portfolio, you're definitely going to want to have guys that are high floor guys. This would be a guy that is a high floor guy as well. I am investing in Sam Huff. Sam Huff is a Rangers player. A lot of people think that I'm a homer on him because I'm a Rangers fan, but I also would say that this guy has done some crazy things in the minor leagues. He's a catcher too, but I don't think he stays there. I think he ends up being a designated hitter for most of his career, or maybe even a first baseman. So this is why it's a little bit of a caution, because he doesn't play a premium position in terms of card value. But this guy is hitting he's hit more than one over 500-foot home runs in the minor leagues last year. And he's just a guy that is going to tank home runs and is going to be on SportsCenter a lot. And he's not bad. Like, he's even good defensively. And so the Rangers have a lot of star power, so he can come up slowly. So I don't think he's going to have to produce day one. He has had some major league at bats, and they have gone semi well. So I would say Sam Huff is a guy that's a deep play. He's a really big, strong guy, and he could stay at a lot of different positions, whether that's catcher, designated hitter, or first base. And so I would say Sam Huff is a cool guy to invest in if you're looking at guys that are a little off the beaten path a little bit. But Tristan Casas is probably my favorite guy. And then if you're looking at a high floor guy, Alek Thomas. If you're looking at a long shot guy that could explode, that's on the cheaper aspect of that, Sam Huff would be the kind of the risky play that I like. And then Griffin Conan is a guy that I just happen to know a lot about him. And I think the Marlins are going through a lot of transitions right now. With Derek Jeter kind of leaving the franchise. So I could see Griffin getting some pretty significant at-bats later in the season, potentially. So that's 4.
Phenomenal.
And my fifth guy is going to be any Mariners player. Just go get any Mariners player. The Mariners there is something special brewing in the Mariners system. They have Jared Kelenic. They have Julio Rodriguez. Even Mitch Haniger is a guy that could be a potentially fun play to watch. Maybe not investment-wise, but if you guys are interested in watching baseball at all, the Seattle Mariners are going to be a really, really fun team to watch this year. The AL West is incredibly competitive because the Rangers, the Angels, Seattle Mariners, and the Houston Astros have all tooled up their lineups this year. There's only one team that is basically set to be last in the league. All 4 of those teams are ready to compete, and they've all spent bunches of money, and they're all ready to go. But I think the Mariners are going to potentially win that division. They're going to be a really, really fun team to watch, and they're really young. So it'll be a fun team to watch. So if you're going to invest in any of those guys, Jared Kelenic, Julio Rodriguez, get your paycheck out. Those guys are already expensive. But there's some guys that are like Starling Marte, or not Starling Marte, but there is a shortstop named Marte in that system who's going to be a fun player. JP Crawford's also on that team, which he had some Bowman first that weren't very valuable at one time, and I could see them going up in value if he has a good year. They have a fun pitching staff. It's just going to be a fun team, and they have like this kind of Ted Lasso believe mentality type thing that's just, I believe a lot of people are going to gravitate. You're going to get a lot of neutral fans that are all of a sudden rooting for the Mariners. So there you go.
It's going to be a fun baseball season, and Kendall just dropped a ridiculous amount of knowledge for sports card investors. This is the best sports card podcast for investing. I mean, I love Sports Card Investor, and I love sports card nonsense, and I love card talk, but they don't get as deep as we do in these types of episodes. And so if you really, really want to find the next play, not the obvious, like, oh, Freddie Freeman went to the Dodgers and the Braves traded for Matt Olson and what are their card prices doing? Like, we're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about the stuff that Kendall just talked about, creative plays, but not outlandish plays that will actually work for you if you are willing to take the risk and diversify your investing portfolio the way that we recommend, where you have flyers, but you also have goats in there, and you have guys with high floors. You want guys with high floors, and then you want some guys with some really high ceilings, like your O'Neal Cruzes. Like, we don't know what O'Neal Cruz is going to do, but what we do know is that his ceiling is extremely high. And talk about a guy that's like extremely marketable for Major League Baseball. If he's hitting home runs and he's 6'7", playing multiple positions, I mean,
I think he has the opportunity to be like Tatis in that way, where he's going to be so stinking athletic, you can't keep him off the field.
Yeah, he'll make some highlight plays just because of his height and his athleticism. And this has been great, Kendall. Good work, man. Everybody, thanks for watching and listening. We really would love it if you help grow the audience by subscribing to the YouTube channel, sharing the episode on social media. Follow us on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy. Go to nooffseason.com. Check out the Sports Card Investment Report. Follow at Wild Cards Trading on Instagram. Go to the Facebook group Wild Cards Box Breaks on Facebook. Go to the Facebook group by going to sportscardstrategy.com and join the Facebook group. Click on the link. And of course, last but not least, go to marketmoversapp.com by Sports Card Investor. Use the promo code NOOFFSEASON and you will get either a bonus 2-week trial or you will save 20% on your first month. Kendall McKee, thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, have a great day, and we will see you back here soon.
See you later, guys.